Hey guys, it's Steph from Sweet Savory and Steph. Today we're making my easy, healthy sheet pan chicken fajitas. Honestly, the name says it all. This is a really simple recipe. It's a one pan wonder, easy cleanup, perfect for a weeknight meal, something the whole family will enjoy while you also get to stick to your own health and wellness goals. Let's get cooking. So today we're making my easy, healthy sheet pan chicken fajitas. The name is pretty self-explanatory. We're making chicken fajitas on a sheet pan. They're easy and they're healthy. First off, we're using 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken breast. I have that to the side for now, and I'll show you what to do with it later. We're using 4 bell peppers. I like mixing up my colors just to add some nice color to the dish, so I have one of every color. Some fresh cilantro and fresh limes. I also have some onions, about medium size. And then I have all the components for my spice blend. We're going to use the spice blend twice here. We're using a different approach when it comes to the sheet pan method here. There's a lot of sheet pan recipes out there that you just dump everything on the sheet pan and pop it in the oven. We're not really doing that here. We're going to actually work in stages, and that's so that each component of the dish can really shine. I want my peppers and onions to cook down and get nice and caramelized and tender. And if I put them in at the same time as the chicken, they're not going to cook at the same rate and get to where I want them to be. So I want the chicken to still be juicy and not cook for too long, but I want the peppers and onions to be nice and caramelized. That's how I like them. So I'll show you what to do. So to get started, we're going to make our spice blend. So I have all the spices here measured out for you, and I'm going to go through each one with you. We're going to start off with cumin, paprika. This is a little bit of coconut sugar. You can use brown sugar, regular sugar, or you can omit it altogether. Dried oregano, chili powder, onion powder, garlic powder, and kosher salt. For the exact measurements, you can head to sweetsavoryandstuff.com to find the full recipe. I'm going to link it in the caption below. All right, let's get started. I have a very large sheet pan here lined with parchment paper. I love using parchment paper for sheet pan meals because I don't use a ton of olive oil. A lot of traditional recipes will call for tablespoons and tablespoons of olive oil. I use olive oil spray that I put in this handy sprayer. And so since the recipe has less oil to cook in, the parchment paper helps keep everything nice and moist, and it locks in that moisture so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the sheet pan. So I love using parchment paper. So that's ready to go. In the meantime, we're going to make our spice blend, and we're going to use our spice blend twice. Once to season the peppers and onions, which are going to cook first, and then the remaining spice blend is going to season the chicken. So we're just going to stir this all together. And I know it looks like a lot, but we are seasoning both the peppers and onions as well as the chicken. And I never like to shy away from tons of flavor in a recipe. So our spice blend is all mixed together. We're going to set that to the side for now. And now we're going to focus on cutting up our veggies. I'm going to show you how I cut a bell pepper so that I can leave as little waste as possible. So to start off, I start with the pepper standing up this way. And I do one slice down like so. This is going to expose where the seeds and the ribs are. And now I'm going to cut around it. So I'm going to lay it flat on its side. And since I can see where the ribs and seeds are, I can really carefully cut around so I don't have to deal with all those pesky seeds. And this has been a game changer for me. So now you're left with a pretty clean piece of pepper, and you're left with this. If you break this apart, you can discard the ribs and the seeds. And you can also chop up this piece. So I'm going to do that to all of the peppers, and then I'm going to slice them nice and thinly. So all the peppers have been prepped. Now we're going to slice them really thinly this way. I like them really thin because I don't love biting into huge chunks of peppers. I want them to almost like melt away while they are cooking in the oven. Okay, so the peppers have been cut. Now we're going to work on our onions. I have 2 small to medium-sized onions. Honestly, you could use as many as you want. You can't really screw this recipe up. So I'm going to show you how I cut my onions, and hopefully I won't cry. So we're just going to slice down that way and the other way. And that's going to help us remove the outer peel. And honestly, cutting the vegetables is the most time-consuming part of this recipe. Everything else is so easy. So we're just going to peel that outer layer away and do the same thing to our other one. And for the onions, I'm going to slice them as well. I want my veggies sliced. That's just the shape that I prefer for something like this. So they cook nicely and really get nice and caramelized, as opposed to chopping it. Plus it looks prettier too. Okay, so there are the 2 onions. Now I'll show you how I cut them. I am not a trained chef, so it may not be the perfect method, but this is what works for me. So we're going to take the onion and cut it in half this way, lay it flat, and then we're going to cut thin slices this way. So we're making really nice thin slices. So again, we're going to cut the onion in half this way, lay it on its side, and then cut some nice thin slices. All right, so there is the onion. So here's our huge sheet pan with the bell peppers. We're going to add the onions right to the same sheet pan, like so. And just mix them together. Spread them out in an even layer. We are not adding the chicken yet. We're going to add that later. We want these to get a nice head start in the oven. These are going to cook for 20 minutes on their own before we add the protein. So before we throw these in the oven, we're going to do a nice generous spray of olive oil. Told you guys before in my last video, I just put my regular olive oil into this spray bottle that I got on Amazon. And that way I don't have to keep buying olive oil spray at the store. It's a game changer. Now we're going to season up these veggies with 2 tablespoons of the spice blend that we just made. So just liberally sprinkle that spice blend all over the veggies. This dish is not lacking in flavor, that's for sure. Okay, so there's the spice blend. And now you can either use tongs or your hands to toss it all together. Got my tongs. And you just want to mix so that all the veggies are nice and evenly coated with that olive oil spray. And like I mentioned before, the parchment paper is going to keep this nice and moist, even though we didn't use a ton of olive oil here. The veggies are going to be able to kind of steam a little bit in the oven, which is going to help them cook down. And then the longer they're in the oven, the more caramelized and delicious they'll get. Okay, so that looks good. We're going to pop this in the oven. My oven is set at 450 and it's going to go in for 20 minutes. So the peppers and onions are in the oven doing their thing. We have 20 minutes to spare. And in that 20 minutes, I am going to clean up a little bit. You know, I'm a huge fan of cleaning as you go. And I'm also going to prepare the chicken because we're going to add that next when the peppers and onions get out of the oven. All right, so now I'm just chopping the chicken into bite-sized pieces. You can also do strips. I like the bite-sized pieces because if you're serving it on a tortilla, it makes it easier to eat. Now I'm just rolling my fresh lime on the counter to help release some of those juices, and then we're going to add the juice of the lime right to the cubed chicken along with the remaining spice blend and toss everything to coat. We're going to take the seasoned chicken and put it on top of those partially cooked peppers and onions, and then we're going to return everything back to the oven for another 20 minutes at 450. All right, so the chicken's been in for about 20 minutes. I used my meat thermometer to make sure it was cooked through, which it is. So we're going to pull it out. Looks amazing. Now this is optional, but I'm going to pop my broiler on and I'm going to pop the chicken back in for about 2 minutes just to get like a little bit of a golden crust on top. But again, totally optional. The chicken is fully cooked at this point. the meantime, for a side dish, I started making some yellow rice on the side, which of course you don't need. This is a meal in itself, but I like the kind of themed pairing that we have going on here. I'm also going to show you some other things to serve with the fajitas. I think that's long enough in the broiler. We don't want anything to burn. Okay, perfect. The finished product. Now, this is why we did this in stages. I don't know if you can see here, but you can see how nice and caramelized those onions are. They are cooked down and tender, and the chicken is just cooked, so it's not going to be chewy or overdone. If you were to throw all of this on a sheet pan at once, it would not cook in this manner. The chicken would be overcooked, or the peppers and onions would be undercooked. This way, everyone has its moment to do what it needs to do. Now, as far as serving it, there's a few options here. Flour tortillas, traditional. I like corn tortillas. They're also gluten-free if that's your thing. So I'm going to very simply finish the recipe off with a squeeze of some fresh lime juice. And I'm going to hit it with some fresh cilantro too. You can skip this if cilantro is not your thing. I happen to think it makes the dish very bright and flavorful. I happen to love the flavor of fresh herbs in recipes. So that is our finished fajitas. Now, since we have the ingredients on hand already, I took some sour cream and I'm going to squeeze more of that fresh lime juice in to make just like a crema, which honestly is just my way of thinning out the sour cream and adding some flavor. So we're just going to do the juice of a lime. You can also add lime zest if you want. And now I have a few more cilantro leaves. I'm just going to really roughly tear these up and throw them in and stir that together. You can also add like chili lime seasoning or really any seasoning of choice to kind of brighten this up. But this is a nice, delicious way to top your fajitas. And of course, all the fixins, you can do shredded cheese, you can do lettuce, whatever you would put on a fajita. Really have fun with this. Make it your own. So those are the staples here. So we have our sour cream, we have some diced avocado, and we have our options for tortillas. So we have our corn tortillas and our flour tortillas. And there you have it. My easy, healthy sheet pan chicken fajitas. Perfect weeknight meal, family friendly, easy to make, easy cleanup, minimal cleanup, ready in minutes, and honestly just hits the spot.